All right.
We're live.
Yep. I'm Cunda,
I'm Ajahn Kovilo.
Tan Nisabho.
and we are here at the Pacific Hermitage, Hermitage Conversations.
Yep.
Conversations with three monks, and this is our third live stream, so we're just getting used to this, and it's quite nice to see everybody chiming in, and all of those who are interested. Quite beautiful to be here in White Salmon, and we're often given very nice gifts. Every day, actually, we're given very nice gifts.
Alms round.
Yeah, arms round.
Yeah.
And Ajahn Kovilo has been doing that for a couple of weeks now since you've been here?
Yeah, pretty much we do it, we go on alms round 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and then Saturdays and Sundays, people have still been coming in and offering food on the front porch here, and yeah, it's been really nice to reconnect. I was here 2 years ago, but to come back and re-meet, basically it's pretty much the same group of people who were offering 2 years ago, and a lot of the people who are here tonight. So,
How does it compare to Thailand living?
I was just reflecting. I mean, the alms round here is probably one of the nicest I've ever been on. I mean,
That's sweet.
yeah, it's not too far, not too near, not too short, not too long, and it's also, the temperature is quite enjoyable. You know, it's cool. Whereas in Thailand, I mean, you know, here if it's cold, you can just put on more layers. Whereas in Thailand, there's only so many layers you can take off. Especially like, you know, if you're at a monastery where they're requiring you to wear, you know, an extra robe on top of your normal robe, which is kind of this macho thing which some monasteries make the monks do.
Yeah, really
It's
hot.
true.
Yeah.
And the lovely people.
Yes, and lovely people. And to compare, I can't say if the people are lovelier in Thailand or here. It's
But you can speak
It's
English.
diplomatic of you.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
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 I have missed alms round though. It's I also grew up like a young monastic in Thailand, and it's very touching. Like when you begin to go alms for the first time, but to go in the West and to see people who, I mean, it's all the more precious for being such an anachronism, or that's not the right word. It's just not something you expect, and so to sort of go every day and meet these people giving out of faith is really, it's a whole different experience here, or at least there's another flavor to it as well. So yeah, it's been very meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the nicest things about, I think, the Pacific Hermitage, because it's quite uncommon actually in the West, a daily alms round.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know any monastery that does it. I've been to several monasteries that do it intermittently, maybe twice a week or once a week, and sometimes it's just voluntary. Abhayagiri does it once a week on the Vampras. Hasn't done it in a while,
Right.
because of the pandemic. But yeah, it's so nice that we're doing it right now 5 days a week, and hopefully in the future we'll start the weekends again. But right now we're just doing Monday through Friday, and then we have the visitors, as Ajahn Kovilo mentioned,
Yeah.
coming on the weekends.
One other nice thing about the alms round here is that in Thailand, you know, it really is just, I won't say it's a formality, because I mean, really, the food that we get is the food that we're eating for the day in large measure. But it's ceremonialized to the extent that you basically go by in a line with your eyes downcast, looking at your bowls. You oftentimes, or usually, you're encouraged not to look at the people who are donating food. Whereas here, you know, we are encouraged not just to, you know, look at the people, you know, which is what you do in America, but actually like having conversations and like talking.
Can you speak
to
up,
people.
Ajahn Kovilo?
Really? Yeah. So actually, like talking with people on alms round is a very nice thing, because you get to hear about where people's Dhamma practice is at. Whereas in Thailand, you have some pretty good meditators. They might come to the monastery on the Wanpra day, and you can see them meditating all night, but you don't really get a chance to interact with them like you do with the people who are supporting the monastery here.
Well, we have a few questions, Venerables. Shelley was asking about if one can trust one's meditation insights. Shraddha asked me why I'm fasting. And then we also have some questions from the previous week as well, which we could speak about.
That's quite a broad question. I think it's in terms of trusting one's meditation insights, it depends on the insights, I guess, that you're getting. So, I mean, one of the things about meditative insight is that it's usually a wholesome thing. It's something that encourages you to engage in kind of uplift and wholesomeness. It's something that's usually like, wow, you realize something. And it's something that often lasts. That's one of the things that people talk about with insights, is it's not something you need to kind of necessarily write down and try to remember. I've heard one teacher had told me that if an insight is actually important, then it'll come back to you, and you don't have to hold on to it. You don't have to attach to it. It should kind of keep coming up in the background of your mind as you continue to meditate, and that's sort of one of the measures of insight that's kind of going to give you a lot of wisdom and understanding. What do you?
That's interesting. I mean, I've heard that same thing, and I think that's only one measure, the degree to which a certain meditative insight like profoundly affects you in a way which is durable and lasting. But there are other insights which can be equally kind of like profound and equally true, which perhaps might not be durable unless you do write it down and review that. I mean, and I think so for me, there's definitely a process of writing down insights that I have, and then periodically, and not just sporadically, but on a specific schedule, like looking over these different insights that I've had, and it's a different way to relate to, and it's a bit more heady way to relate to the insights that are coming up, but it's a way to trust. It's a way to test the trustworthiness of an insight, is if you can trust it over time. You look at it the next day, 2 days from now, is it still true? Is it still meaningful? And
I like that. Yeah, I find that it sort of relates to the question around fasting for me, because for me, like, one of those qualities which does characterize insight is the sense of, suffering being alleviated. I think there's a reason that one of the reasons that it seems like the Four Noble Truths come in the order they do is because frequently it's the third noble truth is the cessation of suffering, and then the fourth noble truth is the path to that cessation. And so frequently it's in those moments where things have actually calmed down that that insight can actually come up, and the path out of a problem reveal itself. And I've always thought that, looking at the reason that the Four Noble Truths are ordered that way, being because, at least in part, it's from those moments of calm and cessation that like real insight comes up. It's always been helpful for me. And with fasting, it's a chance to kind of step back from like all this stimulus, and I think things just become very clear when you have those reference points. And I think it's also the beauty of having, a meditation practice in one's day, or like coming to a monastery, is, those brief moments of calm, things can snap into clarity extremely quick. And I think that's why it's so important for people to have that daily practice, because otherwise, like, the quieter voices, the quieter part of us that is really trustworthy doesn't get a chance to be heard. So I think it, usually that part of us speaks, with the voice of something very quiet. And if there's no room for it to speak, then we never hear what it has to say, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because you can't really understand the Dhamma if your mind is moving so much. And with something like fasting, it tends to provide that possibility, because you're no longer doing something that you're so used to, and especially like when you're not eating in the same way at all, you're depriving yourself of that sustenance. Then when I do it, I've done water fasting, and I find it really helps with just for some reason, my body works with water fasting to the degree that I don't. I'm not really hungry even after the first day. I just get a little weak. But the insights that arise out of that I find are quite amazing. It's just because when I do it, it's without contact. So I'm usually on retreat, and I don't have any contact with anybody around. And so, yeah, there's almost no dukkha. Not no dukkha, but I have so little dukkha going on when I do these fasts I'm on retreat. It's unbelievable. Like, it's just an incredible experience for me because it just so much drops away. Cravings, desire, any kind of fascination or interest, it just drops away completely. So I just find for myself, it's quite healthy and helpful. And the weight comes back, and you just after you start eating again, it's just a normal process. It's not something that's that frightening.
I'm actually curious as well about, like, because Ajahn Kovilo, like, your relationship to, say, insights with reviewing, I mean, it's part of your, maybe people don't know about this, but, you're heavy leaning into scholarship and, like, reviewing not just your own insights, but also the suttas on a regular basis. And with something like the Saleka Sutta or your insights, or like just the suttas in general, what do you find is the effect of reviewing them day after week after year? What's their sort of quality around that? Or why do you do it?
It's a good question. I mean, part of reviewing is just like memorizing, memorizing chunks of sutta, whether it's in Pali or in English. Memorizing anything, really. I mean, it takes repetition. That's like that's what feeds like the memory process. And this reviewing, it's like for years I was using just like flashcards, a certain type of system of flashcards, but have converted to an online, well, it's actually offline as well, but a digital resource called Anki, Anki, which is a spaced repetition system for looking at, for basically flashcard repetition. And it's nothing like, if I'm, studying a sutta and I'm prompted on, to remember something about a particular sutta. It's not like, a flashy insight, but it's just like imprinting this, this sutta, this thing that I care about, this verse, this poem into my mind, on a regular basis. And it's just slowly kneading into me. I'm getting more used to the language. And I just enjoy it. I don't really see a better use of my time other than trying not to use it, and then, actually just, stopping the proliferative mind. But this is like a really skillful use of memory, a skillful use of thinking, and a very efficient use of both of those. So
you find it uplifting?
I do.
Yeah, like just to have those kind of thoughts just come to you, and you're able to access the suttas quite easily. And
Yeah. And it's interesting though. I mean, I'm all of us have done a lot of memorization in Pali, and in English, and I find that the English memorization actually like comes to mind more readily than the Pali does, even though we understand the meaning of the Pali, but it's just, I guess we have more associations with English words than we do with Pali. So, be curious if anyone else has other, experience with memorization.
Greg just wrote there, use Anki to learn Thai.
Oh, yes.
Thumbs up, Greg.
Yeah. These two monks here have tried to get me into Anki, so I'm being influenced.
He's on the wagon.
I'm on the verge. I haven't started yet, but we'll see how it goes.
Didn't you know was there something you wanted to?
Not really. We had the Effacement Sutta. I don't see too many questions that people have brought up, and I'm assuming since nobody's mentioned it, the volume's okay and you can hear us fairly well.
Yeah, forgive us these technological. We're just getting used to things. Feedback is welcome.
But so as long as you can hear us, we had brought up the Effacement Sutta, and this is the Saleka Sutta, which is about effacement. And in English, effacement is defined as the act or process of eliminating something or reducing something to insignificance, which I thought is quite a nice translation. If you think about a lot of what we do, what the Buddha is really encouraging is reducing to insignificance. Those qualities that are unhelpful, that are unwholesome, that are really hindering us from progress towards the path, progress towards nibbana. So I particularly like that word. I'm not sure if it probably wasn't, it might have been Bhikkhu Bodhi, but it also might have been, was it Jnana Panika? Jnanamoli, sorry. Jnanamoli, who might have come up with that word. Although Bhikkhu Bodhi did a lot of editing of that.
Yeah. It's interesting. The original Pali, it might be a good bridge from what we've been talking about so far. I don't know if either of you knew this. Salekana, it was a Jain practice. Either of you?
I didn't know that, yeah.
So basically, it's the Jain practice of fasting to death. Yeah. So we're not into that.
Oh, apropos.
We're not into that.
Yeah.
But basically, the Buddha co-opted this word to, rather than physically starving the body, which I'm not saying that.
Right.
Yeah, because we all fast to some extent, but the purpose of it, the Buddha is kind of retaking this word and saying it's not about weakening the body, until we, all of our karma is gone and we're just thoroughly weak to death. Literally, I mean, that's how, both Jain monks and Jain nuns, Jain lay people, it's kind of like an idealized way to die, and I think it's still practiced. There was, in India, it was outlawed for a while, but then they reversed that. So I think it is legal now, and it happens. It still happens, but fairly quietly.
That word is amazingly close then, effacement, the reduction to insignificance.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty, well chosen.
But yeah, the Buddhist influence is on reducing the mental kind of defilements, the things that make the mind not bright. So
yeah, so it's quite a list that the Buddha talks about, and what's interesting, I think, is how he's talking to Cunda. This is Mahachunda, I believe, who is not necessarily different than the Cunda who is Sariputta's younger brother. That's who I was named after. So I like to think they're all the same Chundas, except not the one who fed the Buddha last meal. I was not. That was not some cruel joke about my cooking when I was in on the guard. But anyway, yeah, Cunda goes to the Buddha and he says, he wants some explanation from the Buddha, and the Buddha talks about views of the world as we talked about also last week about self and whether the world is finite and infinite, all these different ideas, and the Buddha talks about really seeing clearly, and then he goes through the jhanas, and I thought the interesting thing about how he explains the jhanas is he, after the first jhana where it says that thought is, there's controversy as to whether one can think during the jhanas at all, the first jhana, but then in each one of them that he says that you don't think, there's no longer thought, then he says, and then the meditator or bhikkhu thinks. And so that's kind of a bit of a funny thing about that. And what does he think? I'm looking at it right here. Do you remember what he says? Sorry, I can't see it. But anyway, the Buddha tells him that self-effacement, that effacement is not what is being done in jhana, and then he specifically tells him what these things are that effacement is. And so they might seem basic, they might seem kind of like what we've heard a lot, but if you follow this list, then you are really reducing those qualities that hinder us from the realization of nibbana. I was wondering if anybody had any questions about those.
Yes, Shelley says she found it a bit over the top with too many points, and Tamira is saying that I find that the more defilements and such diminish, the harder it is to see those that remain and work through them. Any tips for what to do then?
There are a lot of points, and especially depending on what translation you're reading. I mean, the Pali is very repetitive. We've got 44 different mental defilements, including the opposite of all the eightfold noble path, the opposite of all the 5 precepts, or at least the first 4. And then it has basically 5 iterations of this list of 44. And in the original Pali, like when monks would have been, chanting this, they would have been saying all of these over and over each of these 5 times. And we're just not used to reading like that in English. I know Bhante Sujato's translation on Sutta Central, he goes through all of those iterations, whereas Bhikkhu Bodhi abbreviates some of them, which makes for slightly easier reading. So it's possible that, it's just something about the way that we're, in the West, you're just used to processing information on the print page. We're used to things being as concise as possible. You want the bullet points, you want the headlines, and there's no need to, if a text, just repeats something over and over, that's seen as like a fault of the text, bad editing, basically. Whereas it's a virtue, it's a feature of the suttas when that's all you have to do as like monks for, first 2,400 years after the Buddha. There's no internet. We don't have ready access to books. We're just most monks pretty bored a lot of the time, and but just internalizing these suttas, and it's a very different thing if you're processing them as like a life habit, or as basically I won't say entertainment, but as your just something you do every day, like a habit, versus trying to get information from a discourse. Have either of you thought about that, or any other thoughts of?
I mean, for me, there's the interesting part about, what Tamir's bringing up with, Shelley, the number of points, and then how they seem to, when you work through the more coarse ones, how it becomes harder and harder to address the more refined ones, and how the sutta actually follows that. Like the first one, that the first aspects the Buddha speaks about, moving through are much more kind of coarse means, around, sorry, Ajahn, like the, the precepts, speech and all that. And then they move into these much more kind of, refined things around wisdom, and in the end, just the complete abandoning of views. And for me, just the sheer number, like, of things kind of speaks to, that how broad a base good practice in life has to have. And, that so many people in the West just really want to jump straight to the meditative aspect. But really those are in the sutta. I mean, really the more refined defilements associated with meditation are kind of at the end. And, and so something about approaching those more basic things, and how also the repetition of that stuff really does drive it in deep. And sometimes it just takes that sort of lived experience to work through those, I guess. Something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I agree that it can sometimes, I mean, if we actually look at the suttas as a whole, then I think Shelley's point is around like how someone could feel. Just thinking about the suttas is just too many points, over the top. And that's completely understandable. I mean, just looking at all the Nikayas and all the things that the Buddha has actually said, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's overwhelming just to think of. And Ajahn Kovilo has over the last years of his life that I've seen as a monk, I've seen him like really developing a study around the suttas ever since I've known him. I remember you'd stay up quite late at night actually studying. And it was always very inspiring for me. And yet, when I look at the suttas and the sheer numbers and the sheer just quantity and also quality, it's not like you can kind of distill it. And I've tried to do that. I've tried to actually distill what's like the essence, what's the best stuff to really memorize. And you can find certain suttas that are just repeated over and over again and are very important, but it is overwhelming. It can be quite a lot. And so this was another question, I'll read this out because this goes perfectly. with this, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Please. This question was from last week in terms of a similar statement around how difficult the last sutta was, the Sabbasava Sutta. And it said, how does an ordinarily skilled mind deepen and nurture a practice if one has not the subtlety to understand the Buddha's original teachings as set forth in the suttas? I'm trying to maintain a sense of perspective, but would appreciate some monastic words of wisdom to shore up a crumbling confidence in my ability to grasp and understand the teachings. I'd like to walk the talk, but keep asking myself the same question. Doesn't one have to understand the talk in order to walk it? So that's a very, very good question, an age-old question, actually. It's a very, very common question and thing that is thought about. Do either of you want to jump in there and have any sense of that?
I'm not sure.
I'll just say one
it's
thing.
It's a good question.
And the first point I just want to make is yes, it definitely is okay to think that there's too much and it's overwhelming. And also, like, just kind of coming back to Pema Chodron's statement in her one of her excellent books, which is Start Where You Are. And you know, these are just thoughts that we have. This kind of I'm not really capable of understanding the suttas, and you know, how am I supposed to grasp this, and how can I know something? And that's really important, is to just know, like, we're actually trying to see the illusion of this sense of self that we carry around with our own thoughts of, like, I'm incapable, I can't do this, it's too overwhelming, there's too many things. So I would say, well, yeah, just okay, then put all those things down and pay attention to that thought. Pay attention to the mind that is either confused or thinks that it's overwhelmed, and try to look at that, and that's a really good starting point. You don't need to know all that much to practice the Buddha's teachings. You don't have to get into the nitty-gritty. And so you might say, well, why are you bringing it up here then? Well, these are good points for us to talk about. These suttas are quite beautiful, but it's not that necessary in the point of practice that you might be at to necessarily delve into these suttas to that degree. And in fact, it can be distracting. It can be too much. Come back to the Four Noble Truths. We come back to just the basics. You know, the Eightfold Path. Just the little things that you're getting. Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling steadier through your practice? Are you gaining more insight? These are more the questions you want to ask yourself. And later on, as your mind starts to develop, as Tamira was talking about, like the defilements start to diminish. So greed, hatred, and delusion start to diminish. Then you might have more of an interest. Oh, like, what does the Buddha say about this? Because I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm more interested in the suttas. So that's just one recommendation I'd have, to kind of, like, it's okay to be overwhelmed by the suttas, and it's also okay to put them down to a degree. One of the famous monks in Thailand, Ajahn Dun, he's done very little study, and he's quite an accomplished and amazing monk. And you know, he does not suggest that actually people need to pick up a single book.
Yeah, it's really like on the hallmark of the forest tradition, at least in Thailand, that it's just, I think it wouldn't be unfair to say that it's anti-intellectual. It's definitely not academic. But yeah, you hear over and over in multiple Ajahns talks is, yeah, you don't need to read books, you need to read your heart. That's like the fundamental of it. And yeah, I think talk about not having the subtlety to understand the Buddha's original teaching. Oftentimes it's just, yeah, a matter of the words, you know, or the language of the suttas, the style of the suttas, the style of the person, you know, who's talking about the suttas. You know, it just might not click with you, and have nothing to do with the original teachings of the Buddha. Just it just isn't clicking with where you're at, because the teachings really are, like Ajahn Chunda is saying, is they're very fundamental. I think you're talking about, like, yeah, is there joy or is there happiness in my practice? And one nice kind of measure, which a Thai scholar monk kind of would use is, as one progresses in one's understanding of the Dhamma and practice of the Dhamma, that the number of things that make you happy increase, and the number of things which make you unhappy decrease. Mm-hmm. So it's like an increasing skill in knowing how to deal with the world around you.
Essentially, like right effort, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right effort and right view also. Mm. Like how you're looking at, regardless of whether, the things around you are, causing you pleasure or pain, there can be, wholesome mind states that arise in relation to both of those affective tones.
No, I agree. And it reminds me of, looking at, like, if there's brightness in one's practice, like there's another sutta where it's called the Kachanagota Sutta, and it's quite famous, but in it the Buddha says, look, a disciple of the noble ones knows suffering when arising is arising, and suffering when passing away is passing away, and it is to this extent that I proclaim right view. It is to this extent that one's knowledge is independent. So there he's pointing to the fundamental element of right view is just seeing suffering arise and fall. And obviously there's books, there's reams more of it on one level. But, the Buddha's sort of put forth two teachings as his foundation, which are always applicable. And that's the Four Noble Truths and the Four Right Efforts. And just to say, like, yeah, the Four Noble Truths comes down really to seeing that moment of suffering when you feel like you are overwhelmed by the suttas or intimidated by them, or, doubt around your own practice, and just being able to see it and let it go. And I always found that kind of condensation of right view to be really comforting, and also that it speaks perfectly to this sutta. The sutta we discussed last week it's very esoteric in some ways. It's kind of confusing, but this sutta really brings it back to just these are how you actually develop your heart. Are 38 of these 44 different things are very simple in a certain way, just refraining from speaking badly. I mean, I think you might not understand the suttas, but I think if, we all just took a week and tried not to gossip, which is one of these, that would be plenty, probably for several years of practice. I know I've been working on that one for a long time. So just to say that the sutta is kind of the answer to that question. I mean, we start from where we are, but there's plenty to do. That's very meaningful. That that doesn't have to do with these sort of poly terms. We talk about them because they're fun and useful, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the sutta, even though we're talking about not necessarily delving into the suttas as much, I would still very much agree with Nisabho that if you look at these qualities, around like not speaking maliciously, not speaking harshly, these are the precepts, that just the 5 precepts, having trying to make a right effort, having mindfulness, concentration, or you just look at not being angry, not being jealous, and admitting the fact. What's nice about the suttas, it's saying, well, others do this. This is what other people do, and we're going to be different. And it really is. I mean, a lot of the things that the three of us talk about quite a bit is like habit change, and how we're interested in just really trying to make an effort to change our habits. And so taking on one of these things, like just noticing enviousness for a week is really helpful, or jealousy, domineering. How are you domineering? It's quite beautiful just to notice, like, you bring that up. We're talking about keeping something in mind. You just all week long, domineering. How am I domineering? How am I domineering? And it's like, you both know
he's not that domineering. He's all right.
but yeah, it's just great, because you think, like, okay, how can I not do that? And then you put that into your practice, and you really can you say, oh, I'm not going to do that here. And then people will notice, and you'll notice, because you feel happier. You're not engaging in those things that make us kind of sad, depressed, or question ourselves. So yeah, I also have to say that these, just taking one of these, if you're overwhelmed, sometimes the suttas, just try for one thing,
That's great advice, and I'd be curious. Maybe we can ask. I'll say which one kind of really jumps out at me, and I'd be curious what jumps out at you, and then maybe if other people, if you have a list of these 44 different blemishes of mind, if people wanted to put into the chat which ones, if they were willing to share, kind of either jump out as being ones which you're working with, or ones which just sound fascinating, maybe things which you didn't even realize were kind of blemishes, something that tarnish the mind. For me, that last one is just fascinating. Others will adhere to their own views, hold on to them tenaciously, and relinquish them with difficulty. We shall not adhere to our own views or hold on to them tenaciously, but shall relinquish them easily. Effacement should be practiced thus. That's just fascinating. I mean, how one relates to one's own views about the world is just such a important part of the practice, and an extremely important part of communal living, no matter how many people you're living with. Because if you're holding on to your views, regardless of what they're right, or maybe especially if they're right, if you're holding on to them in a way and you don't know how to just let go, I mean, friendship, patience, forgiveness, for me, all these things on a rational level are much more important than whether I get you to believe, whatever, trivial thing about looking after the house or whatever, So whatever the small view or big view about practice, or just the trivialities of daily life, looking at how am I adhering to this, and really how is it causing me suffering? I find that really useful, and I'm glad the Buddha kind of highlighted it.
Yeah, view is something that is so pervasive. It's just like constantly there, and you don't see it.
Yeah.
It's very often that we don't see it. Like today, I think I was talking to Nisabho, and I was just saying, he's doing like a juice fast kind of thing, and I was like, oh, is that how you're fasting? And and I'm looking at that, and in my mind, I was coming up to, I've done the same kind of fast, and I've done this water fasting I was mentioning before, and that came up right there. Just that view of like, oh, that's not right, or the way I was doing it was much better, and it was, and I didn't say that, but that was what was coming up in my mind. Now
I know.
But it's really pervasive, like it's happening all the time, and especially how the Buddha talks about it in the suttas, others will, and it's often we're comparing ourselves all the time. This is the conceit of I am, and whether we think we're less or equal to or more than, it's just always coming up, like I'm better than this person, I'm worse than this person, or we're the same, and it's just constant. Even if you don't see, like we don't see each other all day long, it's just kind of spurts during the day, and even that, just views arise, just kind of bumping into each other and whatnot. So I do agree. It's incredible when you look at views, and you start to take them apart.
Yeah, there's a good point though made, and maybe either you can comment, but we have to have views. I mean, we're operating from a certain position with certain ideas about how the world works, how our friendships work, what's good, what's bad, and the Buddha does teach these, and we can't not have positions about the world and what makes sense for us to do and not do, but it really is just how we're relating to that, and how tightly we're strangling it or not tenaciously.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the sort of how do I put it? First, I like Tamir's idea of having one defilement a week for a year, like an advent calendar, only better. That's a great idea. If someone wants to come up with one for this next week, maybe the view one is a good one.
Yeah, we got 44 here. So
44, yeah, pick one. How many weeks are in a year?
Yeah, 8 more. 52.
Oh, we're close. 8 more defilements. And so I also I mean, for me, there's that interesting quality around, because it's one of those weird paradoxes in practice. It's like as you become more sure about this path and faith grows in it, there is like an assurance and a refuge there. And somehow that quality of being held by that sort of right view, it's different than the other sort of holding to views, and it seems to very much allow one to relax their grip on so many other intellectual views. And I wonder if you have that experience. For me, there's very much, as one's life aligns with Dhamma, it feels like there's just a way that the world and one's heart resonates, where there needs to be much less kind of intellectual acrobatics and machinations and white knuckle gripping. It just, something very natural in us wants to behave morally in line with Dhamma in a certain way. So I don't know if you have that experience of kind of sinking deeper into one sense of view and the other sorts of view relaxing, kind of.
Oh yeah, I just will ask myself any time that I'm thinking, just, am I suffering? And invariably I am. Like, invariably there's some way that I feel like I'm suffering right now. And so right view really changes the whole lens, and it says, well, this is sort of what's important to look at. You know, the view of the question of, are you suffering? And you know, most of us would hopefully answer, yes, there's some way that we are suffering, and why is that happening, and how can we remove ourselves from that suffering? And so it's like the right view actually kind of changes all those other views and allows us to drop what's not so important, I find. You know, and also like looking into karma and seeing that, you know, there are repercussions for what it is that we're doing, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome. But that lens is it's a switch, because usually what we're thinking about often with our views is something that is not very important, and we're holding on to these things that just don't really mean anything to us in the end. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
There's a question about deliverance, right and wrong deliverance. What does this mean? The Pali is talking about vimutti, which can also be translated as right or wrong, liberation. So it's not like deliverance, like how you're delivering, at least this word is not referring to how you're delivering a message to someone. Although that would fall under right speech, which is also in the list, but this deliverance or liberation or release is another translation. And yeah, there are right and wrong ways of release, like the release of, exactly like we've been talking about, like of letting go, you know, the release of right view when we're thinking in a way which is very spacious, we can listen to other people, and we're not just grasping to keep our stake in whatever it is that we're wanting to show dominance over, or whatever we're trying to push forward. But there's also wrong release, like the release of, I'm having a really stressful day, so I'm going to eat, you know, just a bunch of fried chicken with sugar on top. Exactly. I'm just going to eat a bunch, or I'm just going to totally just release into 9 hours of Netflix. I mean, that's wrong. That's usually wrong release. Or have exactly
all kinds of things that you can do that are unskillful.
That's it's a certain type of release, but it's wrong in the sense of not in tune with what's going to lead to increase on the path. So
I feel like that's worth bringing that message of that sense of wrong release is for me worth bringing back to your reflection on which of the 44 is most challenging to me, which is very much the ones around speech. Because, you know, I mean, there's ways we do, you know, we transgress by body and mind plenty, but I think speech is so often that steam valve for all, you know, whether it like be suppressed anger or Shelley was just saying, you know, for her, the most difficult one on this list is gossip. And so often that's it. I mean, there can just be a very slight sense of tension, and the easiest release from that is speaking about someone. And I think a huge amount of the karma we create is through these pretty accepted means of speaking to one another. And gossip's one example. You know, I mean, it's just very commonplace, but it really has strong effects. And so for me, the ones the admonitions around speech are without a doubt the most important and difficult, because they're so subtle and so easily justified and so accepted. But the more you practice, I think the more you understand how unbeautiful they are. So yeah, that's where most of my wrong release goes, when I don't have fried chicken covered with sugar.
Well, when I don't have fried chicken covered with sugar, I actually, and note to our alms donors, we're not
Please,
teaching at all.
this is not a hint.
But yeah, no, I would actually completely agree with the speech. Like, we talk about usually subtle ways of how we want to kind of get with our meditation practice, but if the speech isn't working, you know, I mean, and I would also say internal speech as well, you know, how we speak to ourselves, it can cause just incredible amounts of harm, and so it's, a lot of people do jump the gun with these things. They kind of say that, you know, well, I just want to get to the, you know, the higher meditative states, but we really have to kind of look at how it is that we are in the world with, you know, with other people. Are we harming ourselves in certain ways? Are we harming others? And that just has gross effects on us. And I've found it incredibly helpful when I have, you know, just a day of quiet, or I'm actually restraining when I'm talking around my brethren. I just find it so helpful. And then the mind is quiet and peaceful. And we can forget that, but it's just so important.
And I know there's a Saint Teresa of Avila had a, you know, a sort of determination in her life to never say something about someone that she wouldn't say in that person's presence to their face. And that's a constant I constantly try to remind myself of that sort of aspiration, because, yeah, it's like you said, it's not just stepping back from speech altogether, but not just the lack of suffering, but the sense of well-being and self-worth, which comes from really avoiding, not just, you know, the Buddha laid down you know, one of the five precepts is against lying, but he frequently expanded that list of wrong speech to include slander, harsh speech, lying, idle chatter. That's one to talk about.
Calls it maliciousness, yeah, is the other. Like setting these people apart from those people. You're actually intending to harm other people through separating them.
Yeah. It's getting a little bit close to the end, but I think, I mean, the topic of right speech, we could have a full week or two or month or a whole season about
yeah, right
on
speech.
Right speech.
Season 2.
You could talk about it on and on and on. Yeah, and then the one thing, there was a question briefly from I can't remember who it was talking about his meditative states.
Oh yeah, Adam
Sounds
Gibbs.
like Adam, you're having a pretty good time there. So I would my only statement to you around that, since it sounds like your meditation is actually going quite successfully, is that you seem to want to be sitting for longer periods of time, and that's great. But you know, there's nothing wrong with sitting for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes. You know, you don't have to push it longer. So, you know, I think it's important just to look at boredom as something you were mentioning as something it's not so interesting, I think, at a certain level, and to kind of try to explore that rather than give into it is one of the things about boredom, is that if you pay attention to it, you don't really kind of try to understand it and put your attention on it, you don't stay bored for too long, because boredom really it has as a sort of symptom like disinterest. And so if you go with disinterest, you kind of just move with it, then it's going to take you there. But if you kind of rile yourself up and you actually try to get interested in your own boredom, then that's something that I would suggest. But it sounds like your meditation is actually going quite well, so you should be happy with that. And there's no, why don't you just sit for 2 60-minute sessions instead of 1 90-minute session. Otherwise, we'll wrap up today. It was lovely speaking with my brothers here, and to people who are asking questions. We're really happy to have these questions continuing. And there's a statement about into January. People are already trying to predict Oh, and you already answered the future, but we could all be dead by then. So, but we're hoping to not be.
Good
And
Theravada.
We will we will continue into January if technology and the world is still going on and we're still getting fed and alive and I mean we could get COVID too, and then we wouldn't be able to continue these.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Agreed.
Shall I read this?
Yes.
So this has been asked of me to make an announcement for everyone listening. This is from Birken Monastery, and I was asked to, they're having a retreat there. So beginning December 22nd. Today, Ajahn Sona will be offering a Dhamma talk broadcast daily at 8:15 p.m. So this is after this talk now. And this will be part of his 10-day metta retreat, which is going to end on December 31st. There is a full schedule of activities that people can participate in, and viewers can tune into as much or as little as they would like. In addition, there will be live tea time gatherings, Q&As at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find information at birken.ca, that's birken.ca, and then /metta, that's the actual retreat website. Or you can go to Ajahn Sona's YouTube channel. No registration is required, and you can just visit the channel to join the activities. I'm glad I got through that.
and just to say, be patient with we're working through the whole, it's a new dynamic with 3 monks. I don't think people have done it before. We're certainly getting used to it. And so have patience with us. And also just to say, very grateful to be welcomed into this community again, even not just on Alms Round, but virtually. And to see everyone here, it's quite heartening. So.
Yeah, and this is like your home territory, since you're like...
I'm born and bred in the Northwest, it's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, something like that.
Very good. So, lovely to see you again. We'll be back Friday at 7 a.m.
7 a.m.?
Yeah,
Yep.
and hopefully we'll see you there, if we're still alive.
Okay.
Yeah.